All right, so today we will be discussing the compare and contrast essay you're doing from the books you read last week. I'm sorry, guys. All right, so what are the 5 paragraphs in a multi-paragraph essay? What would they be, Ryan?
An introduction, supporting paragraphs, and the ending.
All right, what do you think it is, Steve?
Heading and conclusion and body.
All right, so you guys, Ryan, Steve, Cody, you're doing a 5-paragraph essay. Introduction, 3 supporting paragraphs, and a conclusion. Gabrielle and Scott, you have a 3-paragraph essay. How many paragraphs is it, Scott?
3.
All right, good. And do you know, Gabrielle, what the parts of the paragraph, the essay are?
Intro, body,
Conclusion.
Good, good. Okay. So when we think about that, take out those Venn diagrams that you did in your graphic organizers yesterday.
Stevie, did you bring mine?
I think that was yours.
Oh. Thank you, Miss Walker.
All right. So now when we look at that, we have on the left and the right-hand side the differences in the books that you read. And in the center, you put the similarities, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And Gabrielle, I know that you have read both the English and Spanish version of Cinderella. So you're going to be able to compare that same story in 2 languages. All right. The rest of you have other stories that you've read that you're going to compare. Right. So in doing that, what would be something that you would want to include in your essay? Do you remember we talked about KWL, what you want to know, right?
Miss Walker, do you need me?
I think so.
Does anybody have a marker?
Oh,
Oh, here.
oh, here we go.
Right. Okay, just right.
So I'm going to erase this. And we have KWL. And does anybody remember what that is?
No.
Anybody? No?
No one.
All right. So this is what we already know, right?
Yes, yeah, knew it.
This is what we want to know. And this is what we've learned, okay? So in doing that, what do we already know about a 5-paragraph essay that we're going to compare and contrast, Cody?
That's 5 paragraphs and a beginning and a middle and an end.
Right. And what are we going to put in that middle, that section?
Which section?
Our body.
The body, the 3
body.
supporting paragraphs.
Oh, so you mean the 3 body paragraphs?
What information is going to be included in that?
Well, it depends on,
And for you, Scott, it's only 1.
okay, I figured. Well, I would put where she's from and what she does.
All right. What were you going to say, Gabrielle?
details that support our point.
Oh, good. That was very good. Did you guys hear her?
Why did you
Ryan,
say smarter
what did
than
she
me?
say?
Details that support her point.
Good. Good job. So if everybody's understanding what we're saying so far,
Yes, ma'am.
thumbs up. I'm waiting. All right, good. All right. So what do we need to know? Is there anything that we need to know
What we're gonna write about.
what we're going to write about? So if you have a compare and contrast, and you have in your diagram, most of your information is here.
Can we use a table instead of bubbles?
You could, but if most of your information is here and very little is here, what is going to be the
Could it be something
majority?
perverted?
What is going to be the majority of the essay?
Other one.
Similarities
Other one.
or differences?
Differences?
I didn't mean to.
Correct, right. So what would you say then, Ryan, if we're thinking about that? What would we do in our 5 paragraphs? We're gonna have the introduction. Okay, paragraph 2. What do we write about similarities or differences?
We write about, probably mostly write about the similarities.
Well, that's what I think I would do. I would do similarities. Right, then number 3, I would do book A. And then name a few differences to book B, right?
Yes.
Then the next paragraph, book B,
And a few differences from that one.
yeah, and a few, exactly. And then, Steve, what do we put in the conclusion? What do we call that?
The conclusion.
What are we doing with that?
Putting the whole paragraphs all together.
Good.
You
I like-
summarize.
Good, summarize. I like to say wrap it up. Right? Okay. So, if we talk about the information we're gonna put there, I know Gabrielle has the same book in 2 different languages, but the rest of you have different books that you're gonna compare, right? So why don't we brainstorm a little bit and figure out, give some ideas so that some of your classmates can get an idea as to what
Books.
you would include in there.
But what if we all have different books?
You do all have different books, but there are similar themes, right, that run throughout most stories, right? There's man versus nature, man versus man. I mean, there are certain themes in all stories. And so regardless of the story,
Can we use nonfiction and fiction?
what was the books you read last week, which were fiction?
Yeah.
So they're all fictional. And,
That's all similar.
okay, so that would be a similarity, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Fiction. So what would be another thing that you could write about?
Compare the writing style.
Oh, I like that. Compare the writing styles.
Could you leave?
So, that's very good. So how could you could compare the writing styles of the different authors, and for you, that's very telling because it's the same exact story, but there's gonna be very big differences in that same story, depending on the culture that wrote it, right? So I heard Cody say tone, and I think that would be a very valid one. Is there anything that happens typically in these stories that
There's a
you might want
climax.
a climax?
There's a rising action.
Oh, okay, good, rising
It's
action.
the same thing as climax.
There's a climax at the very top.
Miscommunication.
Miscommunication, that's a good one. And actually, that makes me think of an activity that I'm gonna have you do. Because miscommunication is very important, because often in the stories, there is some sort of miscommunication that takes place, which may cause a conflict. And that's something very important, I think, to your generation, because when I was young and I could speak with someone, I talked to them on the phone or in person, and you could gather what they were getting at by their intonation. And who knows what I mean by intonation?
What they're
Nation in.
trying.
That's what I got out of it.
Can you repeat the question?
What, does anybody know, when I was saying when I was younger, you could tell what somebody meant by their intonation. And I was asking if anybody knows